So this adult pretends to be a high school student so that he can run on the track team? Now the guy's name is James, and James, he's around 25 years old when this story starts, and he's living in California, and the dude seems to really love long-distance competitive running, like he used to do it back in his school days. And so one day, in 1985, he comes up with a crazy idea. Why not pretend to be younger and enroll in high school again so that he can run competitively again? So he enrolls as a student at a local high school, and he pretends to be 16 years old. And he gives them a name that he had stolen from someone else, and he gives them a whole bullshit elaborate backstory about how he's an orphan whose parents died. And the school admins, they feel sorry for him, and they believe him, and they're just like, all right. And so, boom, 25-year-old James is now going to high school. And he does pretty well there. Probably because he's been there before, but he starts making friends, and the teachers and parents love him, and he's like acing all his classes. But as I said, what James really wants to do is run. And he's really good at it. I mean, he's a former state champion. Now, the school is still checking out his backstory while he attends, so he can't officially join the school's track team yet, but he does start training with them. And during training, James, he doesn't hold back. Like, he doesn't pretend to be at the level of the other runners. James fucking dominates. He kicks the shit out of them on the track. And then there happens to be a big cross-country race coming up, and James wants to run it so bad. Now, he's not officially on the school's team. However, he is allowed to run the race with the other runners, but they tell him not to finish. Like, he's not allowed to officially win because, he's not on the team. And the next thing you know, he is running that race. And he's trucking along, and soon enough, he's way ahead of the other runners. Next thing he knows, they're all way behind him, and instead of quitting the race at the last minute like he was instructed to do, James can't resist himself, and he crosses the finish line, and he comes in first place, beating all those teenagers. So now all eyes are on James, the big winner. But after the race, he doesn't report to the officials' table and claim his victory. So some sports reporters who are covering the race are like, well, that's weird. Who the hell is this kid? And one of those reporters starts asking around, and he gets James's name. But not his real name, the fake name he used to enroll in school. And so this reporter then calls up the local municipal office and asks if there's a birth certificate on file under this fake name. But here's the thing. When James adopted this fake name, he didn't just invent it out of thin air. He actually stole the identity of a random kid who happened to die as an infant. And so this dead kid whose name he's been using has an actual birth certificate on file. So the municipal office tells the reporter, yeah, we have his birth certificate, and it says he died 2 days after birth. And the reporter is like, oh shit, he's a fraud. And he calls the school and he puts the story out there. And so the school confronts James, and James is forced to leave the school while they investigate. And so over the next couple of years, James, he just can't stop being a fraud. He keeps enrolling in these competitive long-distance races under fake names and beating a bunch of teenagers and winning the trophies. And at one point, he even gets arrested for forging checks. But mostly, he drifts around with friends throughout the western United States, and he just bullshits people about where he's from and his credentials. But then, in 1987, he gets a job working at this bike shop. And there, he steals $20,000 worth of bicycle equipment from his employer, and so bam, he gets caught and he's arrested. Here's his mugshot. And then old James gets sentenced to 5 years in prison. But here's where it gets really crazy, because this is where he cons his way into an Ivy League school. So during those years when James was drifting around the western United States, he had been corresponding with a bunch of universities about being a student there. He was applying to colleges using yet another fake name. And one of those schools he applied to is Princeton University. And so James, he gives them like a wild bullshit backstory. He tells them he's a self-educated ranch hand from Utah who loves to read classic literature while he's tending to his cattle. And also, supposedly, James has high SAT scores as well, and I don't know if he faked those scores or what, but regardless, It all works. The admins at Princeton love his story. It's so non-traditional, and it's just what they're looking for. And so, in 1988, while he's sitting in prison, he gets forwarded a letter from Princeton University saying, "Congrats, you're admitted. You can start this fall." But of course, he can't start this fall because he's in prison. And so he writes to the Princeton admins and he claims that he needs to defer his enrollment by 1 year because his mother is dying in Switzerland and he needs to go be with her. Of course, this is all bullshit. He doesn't have a mother in Switzerland. But Princeton believes it, and they're like, yeah, sounds legit. So a year later, in 1989, James is released from prison on parole. He had served his time. So he gets out, and he goes from Utah straight over to New Jersey, where Princeton is, so that he can start attending. Which, leaving the state violates his parole, but whatever. He doesn't care. He's made it to Princeton, and the dude has also got financial aid, so he doesn't even have to pay for it. And so James, who's now 28 or 29 years old by this point, he's pretending to be a much younger college freshman at Princeton. And pretty quickly, he starts making friends there, and everyone loves him, and he of course joins the track team so that he can compete in long-distance running, and bro makes it all the way through his freshman year with this fake identity, and no one suspects a thing. Then it's 1991, and he's in his sophomore year now. And one day, he's at a track meet, getting ready to compete with all the other runners. And one student is just chilling there, and she's actually there to watch her friend compete in the race. But at some point, she sees James, and she's like, damn, that guy looks familiar. So she recognizes him because she went to high school with him back when he was first pretending to be 16 years old and dominating that high school track meet. And she's like, is that the adult man who pretended to be a student at my high school? Is that the same guy? And this blows James's scam wide open. And she starts telling people, and eventually Princeton finds out and they get the police involved. And so pretty quickly, police show up to one of James's classes and bam, they arrest him in class in front of everyone. How embarrassing. Here's his mugshot. But it's still not over for James because there's a professor who feels kind of bad for him and he helps him make bail while James waits for his trial. And this professor also helps James move to Massachusetts. He then helps him get a job at Harvard Mineral Museum, helping catalog minerals and gems and stuff like that. Which sounds like legit steady work, and that this could be good for him, and like maybe he'll turn his life around. But of course, James screws it all up, because that's the kind of guy he is. Shortly after he begins working there at the museum, he starts low-key stealing minerals and lab equipment from the place. And, because he's an ex-con with a history of scamming people, he becomes a prime suspect. And so police, they go to his place and they search his room and they find $50,000 worth of shit that he stole from the museum. And so he ends up serving 5 months for the fraud at Princeton. Then he serves 17 months for stealing all that stuff from the Harvard Mineral Museum. And since then, he appears to have been in and out of prison with all these fake identities all the way up through at least 2016. So he's kind of still going as far as we know. Lesson not learned.